Good morning, and welcome to our Sunday morning forum. We hold this forum each Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. at Fellowship Bible Church, Middleburg, Florida. Welcome. The DVD we saw regarding the seven churches was very good, giving us a solid base on which we will build our end time study. Notice how Jesus begins with what I like to call a little sugar before the spoonful of needed correction.
And you have persevered and have patience, and have labored for my name's sake and have not become weary. Nevertheless I have this against you, that you have left your first love. Remember therefore from where you have fallen. Repent and do the first works, or else I will come to you quickly and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent. But this you have, that you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitanes, which I also hate.
Correction. We should take notice of the guidance given to the church in Ephesus and apply it to our lives, and guard against losing our first love.
Revelation chapter 2 verse 3 NKJV, and you have persevered and have patience, and have labored for my name's sake and have not become weary.
As we read verse 3, we can see the church had overcome the lies and defamation of those, probably the Judaizers, who spoke against the teachings of the Apostle Paul. These troublemakers were a constant thorn in Paul's side, and it would seem the church in Ephesus had overcome through perseverance such troubles. Also, the Ephesian church continued to bear up under the social pressures without becoming weary. They showed a godly perseverance that churches and people of today should imitate. By all outward appearances, this was a solid church that worked hard, had great outreach, and protected the integrity of the gospel. In verse 4, a relatively short verse actually, but we have much to say about it. We'll start out with the first phrase, nevertheless, I have this against you. Jesus used a sobering word, nevertheless, which basically means, despite all that. Jesus took to full account all the good the Ephesian church, yet despite all that, he had something against them. Nevertheless means that all the good in the Ephesian church did not cancel out the bad Jesus is about to describe. Now, what is the first love? Our next segment says, you have left your first love. Despite all the good things the Ephesian church, there is something seriously wrong. They have left, not lost, their first love. They once had a love that they don't have anymore. This can be described, as Robinson puts it, a definite and sad departure. The next phrase, you have left your first love. Oh, what was the first love? Despite all the good the Ephesian church, there is something seriously wrong. They had left, not lost, mind you, their first love. They once had a love that they don't have anymore. This can be described, as Robinson puts it, a definite and sad departure. The distinction between leaving and losing is important. Something can be lost quite by accident, but leaving is a deliberate act, though it may not happen suddenly. When we lose something, we don't know where to find it. But when we leave something, we know where to find it. Though they had left the first love, everything looked great on the outside. If you would have attended a service at the Church of Ephesus, you might have thought, this is a happening church. They are doing so much. They really guard the truth. At the same time, you might have a vague, uneasy feeling, yet it would probably be hard to pin down. It was hard for Jesus to see the problem, even though everything probably looked wonderful on the outside. The problem was serious. Without love, all is vain. No wonder Jesus said, "Nevertheless, I have this against you." Now to this, Spurgeon writes,
A church has no reason for being a church when she has no love within her heart, or when that love grows cold. Lose love, lose all.
moving on to left your first love. Once again, I ask the question, what love did they leave? As Christians, we are told to love God and to love one another. Did they leave their love for God? Did they leave their love for one another? Well, probably both are in mind, because the two loves go together. You can't say you love God and not love his family. You can't really love his family without loving him first. The Ephesian church was a working church. Sometimes a focus on working for Jesus will eclipse a love relationship with him. We can put what we do for Jesus before what we hear in him. We can leave Jesus in the temple just as the parents of Jesus did in Luke chapter 2 verses 45 to 46. The Ephesian church was a doctrinally pure church. Sometimes a focus on doctrine purity will make the congregation cold, suspicious, and intolerant of diversity. Not to be confused with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Once again, we look to Spurgeon, who writes,
When love dies, orthodox doctrine becomes a corpse, a powerless formalism. Adhesion to the truth sours into bigotry when the sweetness and light of love to Jesus depart.
So what was the first love? This is definite, sure difference in their relationship with Jesus. Things aren't as they used to be. It isn't that we expect that we should have the exact same excitement we had when everything was brand new in the Christian life, but the newness should transition into a depth that makes the first love even stronger. A couple that has been married for a long time doesn't always have the same thrill of excitement they had when they first dated. That is to be expected and is fine. If that excitement has matured into a depth of love that makes it even better than the first love, there is nothing wrong with the initial excitement or wanting to remain or be restored. Here again, Spurgeon writes,
When we were in our first love, what would we do for Christ? Now how little will we do? Some of the actions which we performed when we were young Christians, but just converted, when we look back upon them, seem to have been wild and like idle tales.
With this, we'll conclude this week's topic or lesson. And next week we will pick up on verse 5 and possibly 6. I say possibly because there's much to say in verse 6 and 7. So we'll see how it goes. Hope to see you in person this coming weekend at our forum discussion beginning at 9:30 a.m. Until then, God bless.